watch
hat,
you guys
change the story.
cheering for it. We can watch you cheering 1776. What was 1776?
I know you hate 1776.
Wait,
I know you hate
what
that.
was 1776? What was that?
That was the founding of the country.
What was it? What was the event? What would you call that?
When we overthrew royalty and created
against the government, would you call
a constitutional republic.
Would you call that an insurrection?
No.
No. 1776, the revolutionary. You wouldn't call that an insurrection?
So are you pro-insurrection now? You just babble and stammer so much. I can't figure out where you're at.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out a debate between MAGA advocate Owen Shroyer and Destiny, where Destiny totally dominates the conversation. You know how MAGA fans are constantly shouting about patriotism and the Founding Fathers? They love to reference 1776 in the Constitution, acting like they're history buffs. What happens when their expertise is put to the test? We're about to see. Owen tries to pull the old "let me teach you about American history" trick on Destiny, but when Destiny asks him to substantiate his claims, it all goes downhill quickly. It's like watching an adult completely unravel over a simple follow-up question. It's tough to watch, but here we are. Leave me a comment to tell me where you're tuning in from. I love hearing about your locations all over the globe. Let's dive in.
First of all, what cities are so expensive to live in? Democrat-run cities. And again, he talks about redistribution.
Is this the open?
You talk about redistribution again.
When those cities are expensive, do you acknowledge that those cities produce more economic output for the country than all the red cities? This is what I mean when I say these people don't live in reality. But like, why can't you acknowledge that? Because you'll very quickly say things like, oh, well, there are more homicides in Chicago. Yeah, there's more people that live in Chicago, and Chicago is what makes Illinois all its money. That's where the money comes from, or the blue cities. It's not just blue states that subsidize the existence of red states, which is true. And by the way, all of those governors were so happy for the American Rescue Plan when Biden was there to hand out money to shore up their budgets. But then when you want to talk about expenses and living and all these other things, now you want to talk about how blue cities need to be held responsible, but you don't give them credit for the economic output? It's insane.
It's a nice deflection. So Democrat cities are the most expensive to live in, so I'm glad you at least acknowledge that. And again,
more expensive to live in the U.S. than Uganda as well, right? It is, right?
So you can always volunteer to pay more, all right? If you want to redistribute wealth, you can be the hero, man. You can empty your bank account right now, but I bet you don't. I bet you're actually living pretty rich. I bet you do pretty well. And you want to bring up the Constitution. The Constitution actually states when the United States government becomes corrupt, it's our duty to reform the government. That's actually
what article
in the
clause is
Constitution.
that? Is to terminate,
Second
to
of
suspend
all,
the rules
you
of
can read it
Constitution?
again.
Which Constitution are we talking about?
We live in a constitutional republic. We don't live in a democracy.
What is the contradiction there? What do you think? Hold on. What is a republic and what is a democracy?
A democracy is where a bunch of lunatics like you can vote away my rights. A democracy is where 3 wolves and a sheep vote what's for dinner.
Is that Article 5 or Article 6? I don't know what part of the Constitution.
So you asked what a democracy
So a democracy is when multiple people vote. A republic is when you have representatives that do things for you. We are a representative democracy. That's why we're a constitutional republic. We are both a republic, which just means you're not a monarchy, and a democracy. This idea that we must be a republic because I'm a Republican and we're not a democracy because you're a Democrat is fucking retarded. Come on.
So again, we live in a constitutional republic where we have unalienable rights given to us by God, the Creator. Democrats don't want you to know that because they want to be able to vote away your rights, like they want to be able to vote away your Second Amendment rights, vote away your First Amendment rights, and they'll go right down the line, okay? So that's why these people love democracy. Because they want to be able to vote away your rights.
Are we talking about abortion that we lost to a conservative Supreme Court? Are we talking about the Second Amendment when Donald Trump did the bump stock ban? I'm sorry, how were your gun rights attacked under Biden?
It was a bad ban.
And they came under Donald Trump, so why would he be the guy, no offense, but a liberal from New York, which is what Donald Trump is, that's the guy that you want defending your gun rights?
So that's genuinely clever. Destiny expertly turned Owen's reasoning against him. Owen was all in defending Trump, and then Destiny hit him with a reality bomb. Trump, the liberal from New York, who actually prohibited bump stocks. Why should conservatives have faith in him to protect gun rights? You can tell Owen realizes he's stuck because he doesn't even refute it. He just admits, yeah, the bump stock ban was bad, but come on, there's no but here. Your favorite did exactly what you criticize. The comedy kicked off even earlier when Owen began with his routine costly Democrat cities argument. Destiny snapped back with fundamental economics. These cities churn out more economic value than every red city put together. Owen just can't face that truth. Honestly, this is the result when right-wing cliches confront solid data. Cities are pricey because they're the economic powerhouse. It's basic supply and demand. When he's cornered with evidence showing blue cities are subsidizing red states, he quickly defaults to personal jabs. I bet you're living pretty rich. That's not a valid argument. It's a last resort when you've run out of real points.
Have the President of the United States and the Vice President and the next would-be Vice President Tim Walz have all said they want an assault weapons ban, okay? What even is an assault weapon? Can you tell me?
A scary big black rifle that Democrats have been crying about for 30 years. They haven't banned it yet. I don't think they're going to ban it in this administration.
Very intellectual. By the way, what is a rich person's fair share?
What is a rich person's fair share? I think that the level of taxation should match appropriately the spending that we want from our federal government. Also, the reason what you asked me an assault rifle, there is no definition for an assault rifle. I acknowledge that. I don't want to ban assault rifles. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris both own firearms. Walz is a hunter. When was the last time you saw Trump with a firearm? I watched Roseanne, it was Roseanne, I think, with a firearm, right? Where she almost killed herself on a Twitter video with one? Jesus Christ.
So what, in the Bill of Rights, where is abortion mentioned?
Do you want to get into the constitutional legal construction of the penumbra of rights that are invoked when you try to get like the right to privacy out of the 14th Amendment?
You claim there's a right to an abortion. It just doesn't exist.
I didn't claim there was a right to an abortion. Technically, the abortion right comes from a right to privacy, but we'd have to go over Casey and Roe, and I'm sure that you're not familiar with any of those Supreme Court cases, or probably any Supreme Court case. But the reality is that before you had a protected right to seek an abortion. Now you don't. Republicans took that from you. Before you had the right to own a bump stock, Donald Trump banned bump stocks through executive action, by the way.
Which lost at the Supreme Court.
Which what?
Lost at the Supreme Court.
Well, that hasn't stopped him in the past from going back over and over again to try to get cases tossed or to try to get favorable rulings.
Hey, man, I don't live in a cult. I said I have disagreements with Donald Trump. So you can attack me on Trump's policies that I disagree with. It's not a win for you.
I agree I can't win attacking you on Trump's policies because he has none. I mean, what am I? I mean, yeah, what can you give me what is one Trump policy that he's running on besides 20% tariffs?
Secure border.
That's not a policy.
Cut
That's like
taxes.
an idea. That's the concept of an idea of a policy.
Stopping war.
Wait a minute. Did Owen seriously claim that Trump's policy was to prevent wars? Come on, can anyone point out a single conflict that Trump actually put an end to? Plus, let's not ignore what Trump himself promised. He confidently declared that he could resolve any war within 24 hours. Recall how he asserted he'd wrap up the situation in Ukraine in a single day and instantly fix everything.
Said very boldly, you could end this Ukrainian-Russia war in 24 hours.
Yeah. As you know, I get along very well with Putin. I would tell Putin, gotta settle. I would tell Zelensky, you gotta settle. I would tell one, you're gonna load up with money. I'd tell the other, you're not gonna get any money. I would get a settlement in 24 hours.
So, Owen, it's August 2025. What happened to that 24-hour plan for peace? We're still waiting for that miracle deal, my friend. To me, this is typical of Trump supporters, tossing around vague ideas like end war without offering any details. When Destiny challenges him for real policies, Owen can't think of anything concrete other than secure border, which, as Destiny notes, isn't really a policy, just an idea. And when pushed further, Owen retreats into this fantasy of ending wars, all while conflicts rage on. Trump had 4 years to showcase his supposed negotiation prowess. And what did we see? Nothing new. Plus, the whole bump stock ban we mentioned before. This is the result when your political stance is based on vibes rather than tangible policies. You wind up making promises of magical fixes that never appear.
No, I don't want to relitigate that, but I would be happy to show you the results on the graphs where at 3:30 in the morning in 4 states, Biden's votes go straight up. Is that normal?
No, it's not normal.
So what do you think that is?
I think that just like every single person before the election said, there was an unprecedented amount of mail-in voting.
And they were all for Biden.
A lot of them were. Did you
Of
not
course.
listen?
Of course they were.
Of course they were.
And they all came right at 3:30 in the
Because
morning.
Donald Trump spent a year in the lead-up telling his people, don't vote via mail-in ballot.
You are so
Do you remember
gullible,
that
man.
happening? Did you watch Donald Trump for a year
You are
say,
so
we don't
gullible.
vote via mail-in ballot, we go to the polls and vote? And you know why he did that? We know why he did that. Because Roger Stone and Manafort, 2 corrupt lunatics that Donald Trump has both given full pardons to, by the way, are on recorded audio saying Donald Trump is just going to declare himself the victor on the night of the election because he knows he's going to get destroyed when the mail-in ballots start coming.
And
he knew
did
that
Donald
because
Trump
he told,
declare himself the victor, or did he leave the White House?
Do what?
Did Donald Trump leave the White House?
After a failed insurrection, yes.
A failed insurrection. Who ran the insurrection?
Donald Trump and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and everybody that broke into the Capitol and delayed the certification of the vote.
Do you really believe that?
Was the vote certification delayed?
What is an insurrection?
Wait, was the
Hold
vote
on, hold on.
no,
What is an
was the
insurrection?
vote certification delayed on January 6th?
No, it went through. They certified. Did Trump? Did Trump?
Hold on. I'm so sorry. I don't know who you're answering right now. Was the vote certification delayed? Was Congress called out of session on January 6th?
Yes, I think for a couple hours.
For several hours.
So by the end of the day,
why were they called out of session?
So by the end of the day,
you see how we can't live in reality? You see how this doesn't work? The country doesn't function when you have people
if you want
that
to go
refuse
back
to
and call
accept.
this an insurrection,
The craziest thing is it's all on video. We've seen all of this.
So
None of this is a mystery.
Tell
right?
me what an insurrection is. Just define it for me.
I don't have to define it for you. I'm just asking simple questions. On January 6th, there was a certification of the vote. That vote was disrupted by violence. If you want to get into what an insurrection is, you could say that it was a crowd of people that had gathered with a common purpose to use the means of violence or intimidation to disrupt an official federal proceeding, such as the certification of the 2020 vote, the outcome of that election, which is why it would probably qualify as an insurrection.
Okay. How many guns were at this insurrection?
You don't need a gun for an insurrection.
Zero.
Zero? Wait, the cops didn't have any guns?
Oh, the cops had a gun. That's right. They killed an innocent person.
So that's what you just said, which is wrong.
That's right. They killed an innocent person.
With a slingshot? What do you mean there were zero guns at the insurrection?
So, okay, so the government had the guns. So that's good. So that's what happens when only the government has the guns.
Just to be clear here, none of the people on the grounds of the Capitol had any firearms on them?
No, not a single one.
Really? Not, even though the Secret Service said 80% of the people that were at the Ellipse just an hour earlier listening to Trump's speech didn't go through the magnometers because they saw people in the crowd that had firearms they didn't want to go through that all marched to the Capitol building. What, did they drop their gun off at a hotel? Did they give it to a friendly police officer?
Not
Did they find a fellow
gun.
DC BLM guy to hold onto their rifles?
Not a single gun was ever recovered or on record at the January 6th insurrection.
Oh, recovered.
And
well,
what type of an insurrection?
How many pipe bombs were found
what type
at
That's a
January
great
6th
question,
event?
actually. Who laid those pipe bombs?
We don't know. We never found out.
We don't know. How convenient. The government can recognize somebody's earlobe in a video and track them down and go arrest them in the middle of a hurricane, by the way. The FBI went into North Carolina in the middle of a hurricane and arrested somebody, but they can't find who laid the pipe bombs. They have no idea. And Kamala Harris doesn't remember where she was that day either, even though one of the bombs was allegedly right outside of her office. She has no idea. She's changing her story. But what type of an insurrection?
No one is changing the story. You guys filmed this.
Kamala has changed the story.
We can watch you guys cheering for it. We can watch you cheering 1776. What was 1776?
I know you hate 1776.
Wait,
I know you hate that.
What was 1776? What was that?
That was the founding of the country.
Which was it? What was the event? What would you call that?
When we overthrew royalty and created
against the government, would you call it
a constitutional republic.
Would you call that an insurrection?
No.
1776, the revolution. You wouldn't call that an insurrection?
So are you pro-insurrection now? You just babble and stammer so much. I can't figure out where you're at. Tell me what kind of an insurrection, when an emergency notice goes out to go home, everybody goes home and calls it a day. Is that
what kind of an insurrection ends when the leader tells his followers to go home? All of them.
Perfect.
That's kind of how it works. That's how a cult works.
So there was no insurrection. Trump didn't want to overthrow the government. Thank you for admitting that. That wasn't too hard to get out of you.
We can't even follow basic logic.
No,
1776 was an
point.
insurrection. It was a
now
revolution.
You're deflecting again to 1776.
I'm not deflecting.
So
I'm referring
Trump
specifically.
Wanted to insurrect
it's just
the
funny
government,
that you stand
but he
outside
told his
saying
followers to go
1776
home.
and go, well, is this really an insurrection? Well, I don't know. What were we cheering for? The Star Spangled Banner?
Was
it choir practice?
Actually, they were singing the Star Spangled Banner,
Yeah,
something
sure.
you'll never hear at a Democrat event.
Mike Pence. When Donald Trump said Mike Pence needs to do the right thing, what was he talking about there? What do you want Pence to do?
So in the history of the United States, there have been multiple times where a party rejects the results of an election. And all three times prior to 2020, it was the Democrat Party.
Really? Do you want to walk? Let's walk through those.
Let's
walk through those. Do you want to go through? Do you want to go over when it happened in 1960 in Hawaii, when the only reason why they submitted two different slates of electors, which were both authorized by the state legislatures, because there needed to be a recount. You want to use that one, or do you want to go back to Ulysses S. Grant, the one that happened prior to the ECA even being passed? Right? Where the whole reason why that law was passed was because it was such a clusterfuck of an election. Which one do you want to go to? Do you want to go to Gore, where Gore he gave up that election as soon as he lost to the Supreme Court, where there wasn't even a delay in the electors voting in Florida, let alone a January 6th certification. The problem is you don't know anything. You have no facts for any of this. And the strongest facts that you can attest to, you no longer can because you're scared of being sued again for defamation. So obviously, you're just going to sit here and ramble on some crazy shit. That's why you won't admit that 1776 was obviously an insurrection. That's why you were cheering it on outside and you thought you were going to be the winners of that insurrection instead of the losers, and it's why you won't admit now to obvious facts that are right in front of our face.
Hey, did anyone catch how Owen practically buried himself in his own argument? Destiny absolutely nailed him with that closing remark about thinking they emerge victorious instead of suffering a loss, and Owen just froze. You could practically see his mind spinning. That's what a real-time debate knockout looks like. Here's how it unfolded. Owen mentioned 1776, probably hoping for a patriotic mic to drop moment. Destiny didn't resist the reference. He turned it around. He asked, what was 1776? Owen replied that it involved toppling the existing government to establish a republic. Then, Destiny hit him with the follow-up. Would you call that an insurrection? Suddenly, Owen was in a scramble, trying to separate revolution from insurrection, like there's some invisible line between them. The problem was, Owen had just described using force to disrupt and replace a government, which fitted perfectly with the definition Destiny was aiming for. But admitting that would undermine his entire justification of what happened on January 6th. So he couldn't do it. This is classic debate strategy. Destiny didn't argue against the example. He let Owen outline it, then used Owen's own words to drive the point home. It was the ultimate setup and spike. Owen walked right into that trap so hard I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. What do you all think? Have you ever seen someone fall straight into their opponent's setup like that? Share your stories in the comments.